Lisa is a international teacher. She's a clinical supervisor, an author, a coach, and an entrepreneur. She's a licensed professional counselor and a registered play therapy supervisor. She's really at the cutting edge of her field, creating new and innovative models around therapy for kids and for adults. And she's the founder and president of the Synergetic Play Therapy Institute and the creator of Synergetic Play Therapy. So, this alone would be plenty of reason for me to ask her to be a guest today. But Lisa Dion, I'm not going to completely expect you to remember me, but I did create a bit of a scene at one of your conferences, and I think you know me from that. It was winter of 2000. What would that have been? 2018, maybe. Camry Services in Burnaby. Oh, does this ring a bell already?
I know the location that I'm in, so I know we're now in the same room together in my mind.
Okay, we were in the same room. I had registered months before as a clinical counselor. This was in my wheelhouse for learning. I had signed up for this course, for this workshop. Very excited about it, but the timing could not have been better on a personal level. So, all just 7 years of build up toward this climax of we have no idea what to do and we need a trajectory change. And the night before the conference, I had already thought, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to make it. I'd been up all night with our daughter in the hospital, total crisis mode. And then I woke up in the morning and I was like, you know what? The whole house could fall apart, but I need to go to this workshop. So I'm just going to throw on whatever I can manage, take my puffy eyes with me. And of course, I was late because everything was not going as according to plan. So I show up and I weave. And of course, there's one seat right at the front. So the spotlight's there and I'm late and I'm like, I don't care. This is it. This is the moment. And I'm going to leave with magic or it's just, I'm at a loss. I need the magic. So I was that parent in the room of professionals who did not have my professional hat on. And I was like, I'm going to ask you all the questions and I am going to talk to you at the break and I'm going to take what I need. And it really, really was pivotal, like profoundly pivotal. And so my gratitude cannot be expressed in words, but that was the reason I said Lisa needs to be a guest on this podcast because I need to have this conversation with her. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad that we can speak again and share time together again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So maybe you could just start by sharing a bit about the work that you do. You have fingers in a whole lot of pies. And so I don't even know where to begin with that. I'll let you take the wheel on that and tell us a bit about the work that you do and why you do it.
Great. Well, I've been a play therapist I was actually doing the math the other day and I went, oh my gosh, I hit my 20-year mark, which felt like a really big milestone for me. Like, wow, I've been at this for 20 years working with kids and families. And I'm also a mom of a 15-and-a-half-year-old. So we have teenage world happening in my home right now. And I spend a lot of my time teaching, training, working with parents that I support, the caregivers that I support, the students that I know that I come in contact with, and really understanding what's going on with kids at a really deep level and what does it really take for healing to occur, not just in a clinical setting, but even just in the home too. And because we play a role in that as parents and as caregivers. And so, so that's what I'm up to in the world. And that translates into, I have a podcast called Lessons from the Playroom. I have a book called Aggression and Play Therapy, working on another book for parents. I'm so excited to get that out at some point when that decides to get birthed.
Yes, that's right. It has its own timeline.
It has its own timing.
We are not as in control as we like to think.
Exactly. And I do it. This is what I do. I love to spend my time teaching and training and educating and offering support.
Your consistency makes that so clear. Like everything that I see from you, everything that crosses my desk, every video I watch, every consultation, every all of it fits this. You're just so authentic and consistent, and it's been and flexible, consistent and flexible. So as you learn new things, I see that folding in,
Mhm.
but such a consistency in terms of your perspective on curiosity and trying to learn, and then find ways to deliver that effectively to people. And
Absolutely.
yeah, my own experience has been you've done that in a really effective way. It's been very
Thank
helpful.
you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Can you help us better understand the difference between what parents might call tantrums? So I'm just going to use names that I often hear in the office, right? My kid has these constant tantrums. What's the difference internally about what's happening for kids with tantrums and what's happening for kids who are dysregulated?
It's such a great question because our mind wants to make them different. And
Mm,
and I think it's important for us as parents to recognize that when our children are struggling, whatever the expression of that is dysregulation. So
yeah.
we're really talking about a continuum. So the child that blurts out, "I'm so mad at you," to the child that picks up a chair and hurls a chair at a wall.
Yeah.
It's a continuum, but it's dysregulation. And so I think that
Yeah.
it's important to understand what is that? Like, what is the dysregulation? And how do we work with the dysregulation? Because understanding that gives us insight into, well, how do we respond if it's something that we want to categorize more as a tantrum versus
Yeah.
something we want to categorize as a full explosion meltdown.
Right.
So understanding what's underneath it, I think, is useful rather than,
Hmm.
well, let's separate
Or
out. If my child
categorical.
does
Yeah.
this, then it's this category, or we're going to label it as this. And if they do this, we're going to label it as this, because it misses to me the underlying piece that's really
Gotcha.
going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to get into
Yeah.
dysregulation and go there
Yeah,
in
I
the
think it would be
conversation.
helpful as a platform to understanding then how we go about co-regulating and the impact that that has and why. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you can lay a bit of a foundation for us about describing what's happening when we're dysregulated.
Yeah, what's happening for sure. So, a couple key things for us to understand just in terms of our own development. When I say our own,
Mhm.
I mean human development.
Yeah.
When our children are born, or when an individual is born, the child already knows how to get dysregulated. And dysregulation, the way I'm going to define it, it just means that their brains are perceiving a challenge of some kind. It could be externally or internally, and I can explain what I mean when I say that a bit more. And their body's responding,
Mm.
and the two core ways that we respond are we go into a fight or flight response, which if we're looking at what does that look like in expression, it can look like heightened anxiety, aggression, the energy gets big, the voice gets big, moving around a lot, but there's energy, right? The system is moving
Yeah.
into action to do something about whatever the challenge is.
Mm.
Or we have this other beautiful response, which is to shut down and to withdraw
Mhm.
and to collapse, which is another way of managing whatever it is that we're perceiving as being hard. And again, that can be an outward perception or an inward perception, and that's a key piece, because if we think of an infant gets dysregulated when an infant feels hungry.
Right.
So the infant is receiving internal cues that the brain is
Mhm.
perceiving as challenging. I'm hungry. That
Mhm.
activates the system into, I'm going to cry now, or I'm going to reach out now. Um, or the child could also have something that feels scary going on. Let's say all of a sudden there's a dog in the house, and the dog runs quickly past the child and barks and startles the child, and the child gets scared. Well, that's an external perception. Well, that is also going to activate the system into a dysregulated state. So
Right.
we have internal things and we have external things, and that's
Okay.
important as we're thinking it through. But the point of this is that when a child is born, no one has to teach a child how to do this part
Mhm.
the child automatically knows, right? That our systems are so intelligent and they're wired to know what to do to try to keep us safe and to try to manage our internal world. The part that is challenging is the part to regulate the response. So, the ability that we have inside to modulate that, to down
Yeah.
regulate that, to not lose ourselves in that. And that, we'll call that regulation. And that
Mhm.
is something that we learn over time and we learn through
Yeah.
repetition and through practice. So, that's an important thing, I think, for parents to understand that our children, the primary response or the go-to response is dysregulation.
Yeah.
The baseline is not regulation. The baseline is actually dysregulation.
Dysregulation. Huh.
It's the learning how to become regulated. That's the learn piece that
Yeah.
we're working with them to develop over time. I
Yeah.
think sometimes as parents, we expect it to be the opposite, that the regulation should be the
Is the
baseline. And then from
default.
there, that's
Okay.
the default. And then from there, we get dysregulated. And it's actually very opposite in our system. We have
Uh-huh.
to almost reteach the system that things are okay and that we don't need to be revving up into action or shutting down.
Mm.
So when we're talking about dysregulation, we're talking about a normal, natural, wise response
Yeah.
based on the child's perception of whatever's going on externally or internally. It
Mhm.
is one of the most beautiful parts of our biology. It's received a really bad reputation
Yes, it
because
has.
because
Right.
it's really uncomfortable to be around someone that's
Yeah.
dysregulated, but the
Mm.
system is doing exactly what it was
What
designed
it's
to
meant to
do.
be.
So
Right.
a tantrum could be because the child is hungry
Mm.
or because they're tired, which is an internal perception of things are not feeling right inside. Well, that
Yeah.
could initiate the tantrum. Or it could be that the child perceives that something is really important to them just got taken away. Well,
Mhm.
that could be the initiation of the tantrum or anything else.
Yeah.
So again, the tantrum is
Mhm.
on a continuum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really helpful. Really helpful. You're right. It feels very inconvenient to have dysregulation in your world when you have become more regulated yourself, right?
Mhm.
Because then it's the discomfort of the clash of my world versus your world. And you're right, this expectation of the default in our little ones that they should have basically been born mini adults.
Mhm.
And we're not mini adults when we come into the world.
Mhm.
So reframing our own expectation of the case. So the default is when it's working right, dysregulation is the way.
Mhm.
And we learn over time to moderate that, to
Yeah.
facilitate that, and to regulate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. When this is a common conversation I have with parents
Mhm.
is feeling, and maybe it's a little bit out of order in asking this, but so we're going to jump to dysregulation, lots of it. It's all happening.
Mhm.
Parents are feeling like they aren't knowing how to work with it, and then
Mhm.
they get dysregulated themselves, and then intense shame gets internalized. This is not the mom I wanted to be. I just screamed. What is wrong with me? My mom did that to me. I never wanted to do that. I'm so determined to walk in with my calm, right? And all this dichotic, like just the ends of the spectrum. I can't be perfect. And so then I lose it. And
Yeah.
then afterwards, I feel like too late. Like that was a done deal.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk a bit about attachment and
Mhm.
rupture repair,
Mhm.
and that it's not all done yet.
Mhm.
When things have calmed, you're not done your job. There's opportunities still and
Mhm.
hope.
Well, I mean, what I just heard you say in your question is the
Yeah.
expectation that parents often put on themselves. I mean, I'm familiar with this one, which
Yeah.
is this unrealistic expectation for us to be non-human.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you for this was the thing this is the magic that I walked away with that changed my world. So go. You can talk for hours about this and I'd be so pleased. Go ahead.
Well, let's just start with the premise of the number one thing that children are looking for is to learn how to be human. They just
Yes.
want someone to teach them how to be human. So if we're trying not to be human rather than embracing our humanness, what are we modeling to our children?
Yes.
So the reality is that we are human. We have capacities. We have nervous systems. We
Mhm.
have our own history that gets activated. We have our own thresholds
Yeah.
because that's what we do. We have
Mhm.
our own buttons that get
Mhm.
pushed. We have our own stuff. And so to have an expectation that somehow we're going to rise above all of that and be this, I don't even know, this parent that
Yeah,
has
I know. I
none
call
of
it
that.
Zen. Like,
Yeah.
yep.
Uh, my mind says there is no other option than to have a internal experience of I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me?
Mm.
Shame, guilt, because I'm comparing myself to a fantasy.
Yes.
So, and I can't ever live up to the
Impossible.
fantasy,
That's right.
impossible. So of course I'm gonna feel disappointed in myself. Of course I'm gonna
Yeah.
feel guilty. Of course I'm gonna feel like beating myself up.
Mm.
So that's the first thing for us to recognize is when and why we are setting unrealistic standards and expectations for ourselves, because that alone dysregulates us.
Yes, it does.
So
Talk
here
about a
we are.
trigger, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. We're now
What a setup.
dysregulated. Right?
Mhm.
We're now dysregulated. And then we're already now entering an experience with our child who needs something from us, but
Yeah.
we have less to offer in those moments
Yeah.
because we're so consumed by our own
Right.
dysregulation. So I think that's the first piece just to name is
Yeah.
everyone we're human. And
Yeah.
so let's take a breath.
Right.
And what's so
Yeah.
beautiful is that when we, I don't know, miss the cues,
Mhm.
when we can't get it together, when we have a human moment, when we say that thing that we're like, I can't believe I said that, when we
Mhm.
respond the way was not how we thought it through in our mind
Yeah.
and it just didn't play out the way we wanted. There is something so brilliant and so magical about being able to go back to our child afterwards and doing the repair.
Mhm.
The research strongly shows now that an attuned parent or caregiver is only attuned 30% of the time. That's at 30%, which means that the majority of relationship is about navigating when things don't go well.
Yes.
It's about navigating those moments when I missed your cue and I couldn't show up the way you needed me to show up and I couldn't show up for myself the way that I needed to show up and so much of relationship is about that. When we can recognize that, then we can then go one step further and say, okay, so there's a window of opportunity there. Because if I do come back around and I do a repair, I've actually just strengthened the relationship.
Yes.
Not only did I just model to my child, it's okay to be human,
Yeah.
but now I'm also reinforcing to the child that, you know what? When things don't go well between us, I'm going to come back around. What I have observed over the last 20 years in my clinical practice is that many of the pains and hurts that we carry are because the repair didn't happen.
Yeah.
The,
Agreed.
the rupture happens, but the repair didn't happen.
That's right.
And and I
Yeah.
think this is important because sometimes parents again have this expectation of, oh, I should just get it right, whatever that means. But there's a real downside to that thought. Because if you somehow could pull that off, however you pull that off, if somehow you
Yeah.
could pull
Yeah.
it off to be totally attuned and do it all perfect, whatever that means, um, then the child potentially is left in the back of their mind with this thought: okay, things are so good, but what happens when they're not?
Right.
The
That's
the
scary.
child, right, the child doesn't
Yeah.
actually have
They don't
evidence
know.
yet, doesn't have evidence. And
Mhm.
so what we are now learning and I'm really appreciating about attachment is that strong attachment actually requires us to not get it right.
Yeah.
I love it so
It's
much.
right? It's part of the relieving. It's part of the recipe. It's
It
part of the
is,
recipe. Yeah.
but you have to come back around and do the
That's right.
repair.
Yeah.
And when we come back around and do the repair, that's the part that says, I am here for you and we're in this together, and I'm willing to come back around and
Mm,
take responsibility and say, I can't even believe I responded that way. And that must have felt really yucky for you. And
that's right. Yeah.
gosh, I heard my tone of voice. I saw the look on your face. That must have been scary.
Mhm.
I imagine you were scared of me. I mean, could you imagine
Yeah.
what that would feel like to a child to have the parent acknowledge
Yeah.
to them,
Powerful.
I bet I scared you, and
Mhm.
gosh, that was not my intention. I got scared too. That's
Yep.
why I responded. Gosh, we were both scared. I mean, what an amazing time to be able to come back together and say, "All right, we're still
Uh-huh.
here and we're still good." Right? We're
Yeah.
still good, even though things I didn't feel so good 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
Well, and how healing potentially for the parent because it it processes what could otherwise synthesize into shame.
Right.
It's the opportunity to say I'm allowed to have come through that and felt like that was less than ideal, and I see the pain that got transferred, and I'm wanting to attend to that and heal and reconnect, and that offers a way
Mhm.
to use that experience, not deny ourselves. We don't want to pretend, well, I was justified and that was fine and I'm not going back to my kid because, but also not on the other end of the continuum where that was horrible. It's too late. I'll just try harder next time. But we're not really building that platform to be able to do it better next time. It's very self-defeating if we don't find ways to communicate and share the lived experience with our kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm. I had kind of branched these questions a little bit out, and you've named a couple of things in this answer already because I wanted to talk about that false narrative of we need to we're broken parents if we can't be our zen all the time when our kids show the ramping up, that
Right.
if we can't always come with our oh what's wrong, that somehow we're broken. And I wanted that myth to be cleared because I think that is so super foundational to
Yeah.
seeing everything else that we read and listen to about parent advice. It just, it's like somebody just gave me a new pair of glasses on the whole thing, right? I
Yeah.
read
Let's
it
fish
differently
out
now.
the glasses. Everyone grab your new glasses.
That's right. Grab your new glasses and glue them to your face.
Exactly.
Do not take them off. Yeah.
The biggest myth of regulation is that regulation means to be calm. And
Yes.
and the
Right.
biggest myth that I see perpetuated out there in parenting is that great parenting requires a calm parent,
Hmm.
which so far I haven't seen how that's pulled off in an authentic way.
Right.
What I see more is the parent attempting to look like they're calm. So
Yep.
trying to
Fake it.
generate a calm exterior, and
Hmm.
inside they're like, ah, I'm trying not
Yeah.
I'm trying not to lose it.
Yep.
And the reason why this is so significant, Karen, is because we know that one of the things that the brain is scanning for in the environment to
Hmm.
register safety is something I call incongruence.
Yes.
Incongruence in the environment. So
Totally.
we pick up on each other's nonverbal cues and we
Hmm.
pay attention to that so much more than the words that we hear come out of someone's mouth.
Yep.
And so when a parent is acting calm on the outside, but inside they're not, even if the parent thinks they're hiding the truth, which is what's
Hmm.
inside, their
Kids know it.
body, oh, exactly, their
Yeah.
body is oozing what's
Uh-huh.
actually real. And that actually sends off a warning signal to the
Hmm.
child's brain. It's why sometimes we actually see the child escalate in their behaviors, or the child's anxiety goes up because the child doesn't know how to orient, because the parent that they're orienting to in
Yeah.
that moment is not actually being congruent.
Right.
Now,
That doesn't feel trustworthy, right?
it
I'm
doesn't
just,
feel
yeah.
trustworthy. It
Yeah.
doesn't,
It's
because
not
I
safe.
don't know what's really
What
true
part of you am
for
I relying on here?
you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
when we're talking about regulation, I want to give a different definition. So
Great.
this for when we're starting to get activated and our own ability to regulate. What does that mean? What's the goal here? And then also when we see our child dysregulated and now we're trying to support our child in regulating, what are we really saying? Because what I'm going to say is that that does not mean I need to help my child calm down, and it
Right.
does not mean I need to help myself calm down.
Yes.
So I want parents to take that language and tidy it all up into a little ball, put it in
Can
a
we burn
drawer,
it?
burn it, put it in a trash can,
Yeah.
because what we're actually going for is connection.
Yes.
Regulation means to connect.
Yeah.
So how this looks, or what this experience is as I am standing in front of my child who's losing it. Okay. They're losing it. They're escalating,
Yeah.
because I'm a human being and I have a nervous system, and my nervous system is in a resonant experience with their nervous system. I
Hmm.
like to talk about it as our nervous systems say hello when they come in contact
Yes.
with each other. So my nervous system is saying hello to my kids' very activated nervous system.
Yeah.
I'm going to get activated whether I like it or not.
Yes.
There is no option here, whether I like it or not. So I'm going to get dysregulated. Parents, please hear that. You are
Yes.
going to
It's going to
feel,
happen.
yeah, you are going to feel dysregulated when you are standing in front of your screaming child. You are.
Yes.
You are going to get dysregulated when your child is so shut down that they won't make eye contact with you and you don't know how to engage them. When your child is an anxious ball of nerves and can't figure out how to get out the door in the morning,
Mhm.
you're going to feel anxious with them.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to, because that's where empathy first of all kicks in, right? But you're supposed
Thank
to,
you.
right?
Right.
You're supposed to be able to attune. If we're not
Yes.
willing to
There's
feel it,
relationship
it
there
is.
that's working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're giving me information about what's
Yeah.
going on with you, and I'm feeling it so that I better understand you.
Yeah.
So, all right, so I'm feeling all this stuff. Now it's time for me to regulate. And I just said it doesn't mean calm down, it means connect. So,
Hmm.
parents, I want you to hear that the work is, how do I connect to myself while I'm feeling dysregulated?
Yes.
That's regulation.
Beautiful.
Not about making the dysregulation go away. How do I hang with myself
Hmm.
while I'm
Hmm.
noticing that I'm starting to escalate? How do I connect with myself when I notice I'm starting to get worked up, or I'm feeling anxious, or I'm noticing the urge in me to control my child or make my
Right.
child stop? Or
Exactly.
how do I work with that? Do I need to breathe?
Yeah.
Do I need to be authentic and name out loud, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed right now?
Yes. Yeah.
Do I need to name oh my goodness, I really got to take some deep breaths because I can feel myself starting to escalate? Do I need to name it? Do I need to tag team someone in the house and say, can you step in and help because I need to go take like 10 deep breaths in the bathroom, I'll be right
Yeah.
back? Like,
Yeah.
what do I need to do to stay connected to myself?
Yeah.
That's step one.
Yeah.
So often what we want to do as parents is we want to jump past this point, because this is the uncomfortable piece. And Karen, you had mentioned that earlier, right? When we start to feel everything, it's like it's really uncomfortable. And so the natural inclination is, let's just make
Get rid
that
of it.
stop. Let's get
That's
rid of
right.
it.
Yeah.
And the brain says, I mean, this is the wise brain. The brain says, all right, there's something in my environment that
Hmm.
seems to be causing this.
Yes.
Therefore, I need to stop whatever's happening in my environment so that I don't have to feel this. I mean, that's just a,
Yeah.
a natural thought
Yeah.
process of the brain.
Yes.
However, that's not what we're going for.
Right.
We have to start here first,
Mm.
because remember, our child doesn't have this ability so locked in quite yet. And so they need our support in connecting to themselves, which is the goal. So with
Yeah.
our children, it's not about calming our children down. It's about teaching my child how to stay connected while they're sad,
Mm-hmm.
while they're anxious, while they're mad, while they're overwhelmed, so they don't lose themselves.
Yeah.
That's the skill. That's the
Yeah.
resiliency. That's the resiliency skill. And that's the piece that ultimately builds out and up their own social emotional intelligence and preps them to be able to go out into the world, because there's a lot of feelings out in the world,
Yeah, there
right?
are. They're
That's
not
a lot of
going away
stuff,
anytime soon.
right? And so we need to learn how to not lose ourselves with whatever life hands, brings to
Yeah.
us, so to speak. That just
Yeah.
prompts me, and I'm like, I want to take a breath.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about kids losing, or not just kids. When we're dysregulated, we lose ourselves. How do we find ourselves? That's the
Yeah,
act of reconnecting.
yeah,
How do we find ourselves back? How do we find ourselves back? Can you name ways to reconnect with ourselves internally? You
yeah,
gave a good example about parent. If you're a parent and you're feeling dysregulated, you could say, whoa, I'm going to name what's happening for me. I'm going to be like, the goal to be authentic. I'm going to actually go in myself and find out what is happening that's legitimate, not try and squash it or get rid of it or pretend it's not happening. Name
exactly.
it, go take care of it,
Yeah,
can help us reconnect. Is there anything that works with our kids to help
yeah,
them reconnect?
yeah. Um, I want to share, as you were saying, there's a little story that just came to
Mm.
mind, because I think this kind of puts the whole piece that we're talking about together. So this literally just happened last week. So
Okay.
I'm in my car with my daughter, and she was getting dysregulated. She's struggling, and in her dysregulation and struggle, she is saying things that um, are landing for me as, ooh, ouch,
Yeah.
that's a little painful, right? She's throwing
Barbs.
daggers,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
She's throwing
Hmm.
daggers in my direction.
Uh-huh. This is
Parents,
personal.
yeah, right, parents, we know, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so it's
Yeah. Yes.
feeling personal.
Yes.
So I noticed the part in me that wanted to get her to stop, right? I
Yeah.
noticed that urge arise in
To
me that
protect yourself.
wanted, yeah, that wanted to be like,
Yeah.
you can't say that to me, or you can't talk to
Yeah.
me that way. Or so I noticed that.
Yeah.
Recognizing that her dysregulation is really, underneath that is the phrase, Mom, I need your help.
Hmm.
So whatever the expression of dysregulation is,
Yeah.
what it's actually saying is, I need your help. I've lost myself. I need your help. I need your
Yeah.
help. I need your help. I need your help. And so, okay, so this is happening. And what a challenging moment, because it feels
Hmm.
personal. Why do I want to help someone when I personally feel under attack?
Right.
But these are those moments where it's like,
Hmm.
and she needs my help. I'm the parent
Hmm.
right now, right? She needs my help. So in that moment, it was taking a really deep breath, big one, many of them,
Yeah.
reminding myself that she needs my help.
Okay.
And then within my own system, reaching my hand across and putting my
Mm.
hand on her leg,
Mm.
right? Just so in the midst of the
Hmm. Of
activation,
the
in the midst of
recoiling.
wanting to pull away,
Right.
I actually leaned in to
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah.
And I put my hand on her, I didn't say anything, I just put my hand on her leg, and I felt her body just go,
Yeah.
and she put her hand on my hand.
Yeah.
And in that moment, she connected to herself.
Okay. Yes.
So the piece that we're answering here is, what does it take to help the child connect? And the answer is, our child needs to borrow our regulatory capacity.
Yes.
Our child is looking to borrow our nervous system. So in that moment when I'm dysregulated, I have to connect to myself to offer her something,
Mhm.
something to grab onto. Otherwise, she doesn't have anything to grab onto. She's just
Yeah.
reaching into my dysregulation, so to speak. So
Right.
she's got to be able to again, to borrow something. So when I put my hand on her leg, it grounded her,
Yeah.
and she was able to connect to herself and feel herself because she was able to borrow my regulatory
Yeah.
capacity at that moment. And so that's like one example of of the process, because there's not a
Mhm.
script, and I know
Mhm.
parents really want the
Oh, I
script.
know. We
I know,
want the
I
manual.
really
I
want,
know.
and it's not that. I think there's just these couple key pieces. It's like,
Yeah.
step one, I need to be able to even register that I'm dysregulated as the parent,
Mhm.
like, that I'm bothered, right? Something's up for me. And then step two, I need to find a way back to myself.
Yeah.
Once I have found my way back to myself, now I can help my child,
Mhm.
but not until that point.
Mhm.
And when I'm supporting my child, it's not about making them stop or calming their behavior. It's about finding a way to support their own internal connection. So ideas. So in that moment, we're in a car, right? This I'm
Yeah,
working with
limited
what's
options.
available. So
Yeah.
hand went on her leg. If we were at home, it might have been, hey babe, let's go take a walk. It might have been turning on her favorite song,
Mhm.
and because I know she really loves music, and rhythm helps her, right? Rhythm
Yep.
helps her get in touch with herself. It might have been recognizing, oh, you know what? She hasn't had a snack. Okay, let's get you a snack. So it might
Mhm.
be me recognizing that that's part of it and getting
Meeting
her a
basic
snack.
needs. Yeah.
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 It might be, so my daughter really likes physical touch. I know some kids do, some kids don't. So sometimes I notice she gets dysregulated and I don't say anything. I just walk over and
Mhm.
I just put my arms around her and just squeeze her, right? Squeeze her and hold her tight,
Yeah.
because that act of the physical pressure helps her get back,
Releases it.
into her
Yeah.
body. And then sometimes I totally forget everything that we're talking about, and we totally have a moment where it's super messy,
Right.
and then we come back and we do the repair, and then we do the things that we're talking about right now is,
Yeah.
and then we hug, or we take a breath together,
Yeah.
or we take the walk, or we get the snack, or we and we come back around and we go,
Mm.
wow, that was messy.
Yeah. Ha. Can you talk about mirroring more of
Mhm,
the data we receive, the emotional data
mhm,
that happens in the discharge from our kids and the interaction with our kids? We're collecting information,
yeah,
and it happens because we're connected to them, and so it's like a wire, right? A wire tap, and then we get all that data and we
mhm,
feel the things ourselves, and then to be authentic and genuine and transfer that into a productive
yeah,
piece here. The production is really about reconnection. Um, Mirroring looks
yeah,
like what?
yeah.
Because that when you described that in front of me, I and it's probably just how I learn, but I needed a visual. I couldn't have read that in a book. It would not have stuck with me. But
Mhm,
when you showed me what it looked like to me, I was like, oh dang, I get that. I
mhm,
can do that all the time. And
mhm.
right, the concept. So if you can describe or show us what authentic mirroring
Yeah,
looks like and why it works,
yeah.
that would be great.
So the question is, what are we mirroring? That's kind of the big
Mhm.
question in the question. Because sometimes we think that the mirroring is a literal mirroring of our child.
Yeah.
So, our child is going, ah, and then we go,
Yeah.
ah,
Ah, yeah,
right?
no. Yeah,
Or
okay.
the child is sad, so therefore we need to look sad.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're mirroring.
Yeah.
What we're mirroring is the felt sense between us. We're mirroring the emotions that are arising. And so it's almost like you could take the word mirroring and again put that in the drawer too, and
Okay.
just come back to, what does it take for you to have a genuine, authentic response related to what's happening in that moment in the relationship?
Yeah.
And how do you do it in a way where you're taking responsibility rather than blaming. So we'll
Mhm.
give some more language, right? So like, let's say that I'm having an experience with a child, and the child is doing something, and my system is starting to feel overwhelmed, and I'm starting to get dysregulated and activated, and I'm starting to feel really, really overwhelmed. Well, mirroring would be mirroring and working with the activation of the overwhelm.
Yeah.
Okay. An authentic way of working with that um, could be, well, I'm noticing that I'm getting overwhelmed. Wow, I'm noticing that I need to take a deep breath. Wow, I'm noticing I need to like shake my hands out or stomp my feet on the
Yeah.
ground. That's different than you're overwhelming me,
Right.
right? Because someone
Yeah.
might say, well, that's authentic too. Well, our system is choosing is in response. And we're talking about, if we're mirroring, we're talking about offering our child, I'm going to use the word template, a template for
Mhm.
learning. Okay. So one of the cool things that happens is that our children engage with us in such a way where we now have this sort of shared activation experience. And then as they are observing our own activation, there is a part of their brain that's watching us going, oh, mom gets it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
mom gets it.
Validating.
Well, yeah,
Visually validating.
that's what it feels like inside. See,
Yeah.
mom's getting stressed out too. See? And so
Yeah.
two things. One is when we pretend that we're calm,
Yeah.
we're rupturing the mirror,
Yeah.
right? Which is often why they have to escalate it
That's
so that
right.
the mirror can
There
come
it
back
is.
online.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So we're not actually being authentic, and we're not giving them a clean mirror, if you will,
Mhm.
to look into to see themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that part of it.
Okay.
But the second piece is that they're now watching to see what we do with it.
Mhm.
So if we are recognizing that this is a teachable moment, well, let's take responsibility in those moments.
Yes.
I need this.
Yeah.
I'm noticing. Because that's part of the new template that we're giving our child. Look,
Yeah.
when you feel overwhelmed, you can ask for what you need too.
Yes.
Look, when you're really struggling, look, you can
You
go take
deserve
a couple.
care.
You
Yeah.
deserve care, which is
Yeah.
different than when you feel overwhelmed, just blame someone.
Yes. Totally. That is exactly what's happening when we have that expectation. That's exactly right. This is what I do when I'm upset. It's your fault.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
and I think that's in part what happens for parents who internalize shame is they
Yeah.
recognize that they don't want to blame their kids, but that's what's coming out of their mouths.
Yeah.
And it's not inauthentic. It isn't inauthentic to say I'm being impacted by what my child's bringing to the room. That
Yes.
is not that's true.
Yes.
But the blame piece, when we call it blame, it insinuates that we need to then control and change and fix that thing so we can be okay. And that's the lack of responsibility. So
Exactly.
I'm genuinely, legitimately overwhelmed by what is happening for my child and that I'm in tune with, attuned to, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fair. But I think that's where we get the language piece because that's when people blame themselves and go, that's not okay to feel that way. It's like, I need to only be in their world and not recognize what's happening for me. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
powerful difference.
It is a powerful difference. And our children are watching. And
Yeah,
and again, they want to know how to do human. So we're
right.
gonna we're gonna be human.
Yeah,
I've had parents ask me, okay, great, Lisa, but what about like when you're really mad? Like, what does that look like
yeah,
when you're really, really angry and you're about to lose it?
yeah,
There's something really beautiful about being able to say to your child as you're escalating, um, um, I'm escalating. I'm
yeah,
hearing it. I'm noticing. I'm hearing my own voice. I'm noticing my own temperature rise. I know I know that in about 5 minutes that I have a high probability where I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something really, as I'm saying that, I'm not calm, but I'm connected to myself.
Yep.
So let's add that little nuance in here too. I'm not flying off the handle. I'm being
Mhm.
honest about the fact that I'm angry, but I'm not
Mhm.
flying off the handle about it.
Yeah.
I'm connected and I'm poised. I'm centered in it.
Yeah.
So, parents, it's okay to say, I feel really angry right now.
Right.
So I'm going to take a deep breath.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going
That
to
is what
do to
that
take
is regulation.
responsibility and care for myself in front of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is regulation.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm about to lose my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a deep breath right now.
Yeah.
I'm
Otherwise,
feeling
we risk
so
this, like I'm
overwhelmed.
teaching my kid that anger is not okay.
Mhm.
That's an emotion we don't feel here, right? By demonstration, that's what we would be saying. Is
Right.
I have to deny myself of that feeling. I feel shame for having that feeling. I won't let you in on that little secret, although they know anyway. But
Yeah.
our attempt is to conceal, to squash, to get rid of, to deny, and to protect people from, when in fact, it's not the anger is not the problem,
Nope.
right? The anger is not the problem. It's the disconnection that puts us at risk.
It's the fact that we're not being honest about it. That's the
We're not being
that's the
honest,
whole
right?
cause of it.
And
Yeah.
we always say that, right? In therapeutic context, the further you want to shove it down, the more loud it will come out. It will
Exactly.
find its leak hole and it will, right? It will come out like the dam can only hold so much. You will find a leak. And that's okay because your body is saying it. I'm right here. You can't control me. There's something that has to happen, and you're denying me of the opportunity, right, for it to flow.
Children are craving authenticity. They're craving
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And they will do whatever they need to do to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They will push, they will do whatever it takes.
Mm.
Sometimes I think it's useful as parents for us to stop when our children are escalating or when things seem to be really kind of going, to really stop and ask that question, how much am I trying to deny right now?
Yeah.
Where am I not being honest about what's going on? And how is that potentially contributing to the escalation?
Yeah.
Because if I can see it that way, then I can recognize that my child's escalation is actually my help. And that my child is not escalating to make me mad per se.
Right.
My child is escalating to help me get authentic,
Yeah.
which, what if that's the truth?
Mm.
What if most of what's happening in the parent child dynamic is trying to get both people to be authentic,
Yeah.
and that we will do whatever it takes because we actually love and care for each other
Hmm.
to push whatever button we need to push
Yeah.
to help
To
each other
get that.
get that and to get
Yeah.
back to ourselves.
Yep.
If a
Yeah.
parent is lost, that parent expect the child to do whatever they can to help them get back in touch with
Yeah.
themselves. Even if it's starting with getting in touch with their own anger about the situation,
Mm.
it's at least a step back. And
Yeah.
we do the same for our children, even if we don't recognize that we're doing it in this language. But I firmly believe that
Mm.
the parent-child relationship, part of the magic of it is that at the root of it all, both parent and the child want and are trying to support each other in being their most authentic, most real
Mm.
selves.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's a powerful summative statement. Like, I don't know if other parents operate this way, but when I'm veering towards my own dysregulation, and at the same time very aware of wanting to get this right for my kids,
Mhm.
it's at that fork in the road that I go, I need a tidbit to ground me intellectually. Like, I need, what's my purpose here? What's my goal when I walk into their bedroom? What is the, when I address or connect, what am I aiming for? Like, I need a couple of words, one phrase to hook. Right, that grounds. Right, that's what this was all about. That's where I'm headed. Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
makes all the difference. And I'll often say to myself, with, not at. And that
Mhm.
alone will help me. I'll say, no, my goal is not to be at her, it's to be with her.
Mhm.
right? Or walking this through with parents who go, I just lose it. You could tell me all the right things and I'll walk home and I'll be determined, like, yes, it all makes sense. And then something hits the fan and I'm like, what did she say?
Mhm.
And fair, I have that same lived experience. So even just these little pieces of foundation that go, oh, right, that's the root. That's the thing.
Right.
And I can
My
do it
child is here to help
imperfectly.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. That
My
this
child's
is
trying to
this
help
is
me.
data. This is helpful. This isn't something to stop. This is something to let flow. This is something to be safe in. This is something to connect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then it
Exactly.
orients everything we do, right? If I can say my goal is to be with, then everything, every tiny next step I do is about, is this me being with or at her?
Mhm.
And it just, we get through it, right? And
Mhm.
then what used to be 5 hours is now 5 minutes.
Karen, as you're saying that, the new little phrase in my head, right? The
Yeah.
connect, not calm.
Yes, yes,
There's a
yes.
little
Connect,
like
not calm.
connect,
Beautiful.
not calm, right? Connect, not
Connect, not calm.
calm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm aware of time because I really, honestly, Lisa, I could just talk to you all day and we can't because we have other things we need to get to. But can I just say thank you so much for your generous offer to spend this hour with us, to record this in two ways. So if parents want the more interactive kind of approach, if that's helpful for hearing and learning and being with us, then you can watch the video or you can just listen on the podcast. But I would encourage you to check out Lisa's resources, and I'll put all the links to her information and her books and all that stuff in the show notes so that you can look at that more because I regularly refer people to your information. And yeah, thank you for doing this today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen, so much for the invitation.